He stole from me. That's the beginning, middle, and end of it. People can dress it up however they want, say he did what he thought was best. Say he was trying to provide for his family. Say I should have thought about my younger siblings, but let's be real. The man looked me in the eye, told me he loved me, then turned around and took the money my mother died leaving me. That's not some misunderstanding. That's theft. And it wasn't a little. It wasn't a few $100s or even a couple thousand. It was over 100,000 money my mother put aside in her will, earmarked for me to give me a future after she was gone. She died when I was 10. Do you know what it does to a 10-year-old to lose her mother? To watch the one person who made you feel safe vanish from the world and leave you in the care of someone who, on paper, was supposed to love and protect you, but in reality just used you as a financial stepping stone? At first, I didn't even understand what had happened. I knew there was money. I knew my mom made plans for me, but I didn't know what those plans really meant. Not until I was older. Not until I overheard a conversation between my dad and his new wife about investing in capital and startup funds. I was 15. I asked him if he was talking about my inheritance. He told me yes, like it was no big deal. Like he hadn't just spit on the last gift my mother left me. He tried to spin it, said it was for the good of the family, that I'd benefit too, that I should be grateful we were doing something smart with the money instead of blowing it on a car or a trip when I turned 18. That's what he thought I'd do with it. Like I was some reckless idiot who'd never value what she'd been given. The truth is, I didn't know what I would have done with that money yet. I was 15. But I sure as hell wouldn't have handed it over to him and his new wife to play entrepreneur with. I fought. I raged. I told him he had no right. He told me I had no clue how the real world worked. And then he told me to drop it. So I did, on the outside. But inside something broke, and I never forgot. I made it my mission from that moment forward to get out of that house and get my money back. Every snide comment from his wife about how I was ungrateful. Every time he told me I was being difficult. Every cold shoulder, every fight, every silent meal. We just chipped away at any possibility of me forgiving them. The moment I turned 18, I was gone, I moved out. And the first thing I did before getting a car, before partying, before anything was look into legal options. My mom had a will. She had legal documentation that set that money aside for me. And my dad had broken that will. That wasn't just betrayal. It was a crime. I found a lawyer who would take my case. She was blunt, said it would be long, ugly, that my father would fight, that I might not win, but I didn't care. I didn't need a guarantee, I needed a shot. I sued him for every last cent. And suddenly all the people who had been silent about what he did started telling me to consider the children. Your siblings are innocent. Don't punish the family. Think about the impact this will have on your father's household. And you know what? I didn't care. Because no one thought about me when he took the money. No one cared about how I'd feel growing up knowing my mother's final act of love had been casually redirected to support someone else's dream. No one considered the fact that I was also a child when this happened, and I was the one being robbed. Everyone wanted to protect the kids now, but no one protected me then. So no, I didn't think about the impact on his new family. I thought about justice. I thought about what my mother would want. I thought about the fact that if I let it go, I'd be complicit in letting her memory be disrespected. And I wasn't going to let that happen. The process dragged on. Court dates, delays, documents, depositions. He tried to say he didn't have the money, that it was tied up, that the business was struggling. I didn't care. I was relentless. And when the judgment finally came down and the court sided with me, ordered him to sell the business, pay out of pocket, clear my inheritance plus interest, I felt nothing. Not relief, not joy, just finality. Like closing a door that should have never been opened in the first place. They had to sell the business. His wages were garnished. They drained their savings to keep from drowning. And people had the nerve to ask me if I felt bad. If I regretted putting his new wife and their kids through that. Let me say this loud and clear. I did not take anything from those children. I did not reach into their future and steal. I did not use something that was meant for them to enrich. Myself, that was him, that was their parents. They gambled with money that didn't belong to them and lost. That's not my fault. That's not my burden to carry. And no, I don't feel guilty, because guilt implies I did something wrong. All I did was reclaim what was already mine. If anyone should feel guilty, it's him for forcing his teenage daughter to fight for her rights in court just to undo the damage she caused. For dragging me through years of legal hell instead of doing the right thing from the beginning. For putting his minor children in the middle of a mess he'd created. They say, you should have thought about the kids. But who was thinking about me when I was that kid? When I was grieving my mother, living in a house with people who treated me like a problem, watching my inheritance dissolve into someone else's dream business. If protecting their family meant destroying me, then that was never a family worth protecting. So no, I don't lose sleep over what happened to them. I don't cry over the fact that they had to move to a smaller place or give up a vacation or tighten their budget. I'm not heartless, I'm just tired of being the only one expected to sacrifice. They want to call me selfish? Fine, call me selfish. But don't forget who taught me to be this way. Selfish. That's the word they all landed on, like they rehearsed it in some group chat I wasn't invited to. That's what my aunts and uncles whispered when I didn't show up to my half-sister's birthday party. That's what my dad's cousin said outright when I declined an invitation to their Christmas dinner, where apparently everyone was willing to put things behind us. As if this was a misunderstanding. As if it was something you could put on the shelf next to old photo albums and say, well, we all made mistakes. But I didn't make a mistake. I made a decision, and I've stood by it. My dad's side of the family didn't get it. They saw me as the one who blew things up, the one who shattered this picture of harmony they were trying to fake their way into. But I remember the looks they gave me after my mom died, like I was this inconvenient extension of grief they weren't sure how to handle. My dad's new wife, she made it clear from day one that I was her husband's past, not part of her future. She was always smiling too tightly, offering help I didn't ask for, inserting herself into parenting decisions with that tone of forced sweetness that made my skin crawl. And then there were her kids, the real family. As I heard her call them once when she thought I wasn't listening, she said it to her sister on the phone. Now that we're building a real family, everything feels so complete. A real family, like I was the warm-up act, the leftover, the shadow of another woman's life. My mother's name was barely mentioned in that house. No photos in the living room, no stories. Just one tiny framed picture in my room, which I had to beg to keep after they redecorated. My dad moved on, fast. It was like she never existed. And when I started questioning where the inheritance was, when I pushed for answers, suddenly I was the problem. Disrespectful, ungrateful. She's just acting out, his wife would say, loud enough for me to hear. She's making it impossible to blend the family. No, I wasn't. I was making it impossible for them to pretend what they did wasn't theft. I didn't scream or slam doors. I didn't run away. I stayed. I endured 3 more years of that house, of quiet hostility and backhanded comments, and being made to feel like I was in the way. And when I finally had the power to take action, I took it. What else was I supposed to do? Wait forever and hope they did the right thing? Hope they maybe handed me a few dollars here and there once the business took off? They didn't even apologize. Not once. Not even after the court ruled in my favor. Not when they signed the papers. Not when they wired the money back. Just silence. Stubborn silence. My dad never looked me in the eyes during the final court date. He stared at the floor like he was the one who got wronged. Like I had betrayed him and the kids, his new kids. I barely knew them. I never babysat them. Never played the big sister role. That was never encouraged. I was tolerated around them, not included. I remember one time when the youngest asked if I was going to be at their school play, and the look on their mom's face was so panicked, you'd think the kid had asked if I was moving in. She pulled them aside, whispered something, and that was it. From then on, I stopped being invited to things. They didn't want me there. They wanted a clean slate, and I was the reminder they couldn't erase. So when people now ask me how I can be so heartless, how I can hurt those poor innocent kids, I want to laugh, because I was a kid too. And no one blinked when I got hurt. No one fought for me when I was sitting alone at school meetings while the rest of the family showed up together. No one defended me when my belongings started disappearing because we needed to make room for the new baby. No one worried about my emotional development when I cried myself to sleep every night in a house that felt less like home and more like a placeholder. The hypocrisy is stunning. They expect me to carry compassion for children who are being raised by the same people who gutted my future like it was theirs to take. Do I feel for those kids? Sure, in the abstract. In the same way I feel for any child born into a family with toxic priorities. But do I feel responsible for protecting them from consequences their parents brought on themselves? Absolutely not. If anyone was supposed to shield them from that fallout, it was their mom and dad. Not me. I was a victim of this, not a villain. And the fact that some family members can't or won't make that distinction says more about them than it does about me. The money is mine now. And before anyone asks, no, I haven't spent it all. I didn't blow it on luxuries. I paid for college. I got a reliable car. I moved into a safe apartment. I started building the life my mom wanted me to have. I still have a chunk saved. And every time I look at it, every time I see the balance, I don't feel greedy. I feel grounded. Because that money is more than currency. It's proof. Proof that I wasn't crazy. Proof that what they did was wrong. Proof that justice, even when delayed, is still possible. Sometimes I wonder if my dad ever lies awake at night and thinks about what he did. Not just the theft, but the loss. Of me, of his daughter. Of the chance to be in my life as I grew into someone strong and whole without him. I wonder if he regrets not just the money, but the silence. The way he let someone else fill the room where my mother's memory used to live. I wonder if he realizes how final this all is. Because there is no coming back from this, no clean slate, no Sunday dinner that makes it okay. We're not estranged. We're done. That chapter is closed, not paused. And I think deep down he knows that. But if he doesn't, if he's still clinging to some fantasy where I come back into the fold, apologize for fighting for myself, ask for forgiveness, then he doesn't know me at all. People say blood is thicker than water, like it's supposed to mean something. Like biology is this unshakable bond, like DNA guarantees love or respect or even basic decency. But I've seen firsthand how easily people use blood as a leash, something to yank on when you start pulling away, something to guilt you into silence when you finally speak up. But he's your father, they said. Those kids are your siblings. And what? That's supposed to cancel out everything he did. Is being related supposed to make me okay with being robbed? Am I meant to keep quiet and let my mother's legacy be repurposed into a vanity project just because the thief and I happen to share chromosomes? I think the people who say that the loudest are the ones who've never actually been betrayed by their family. They imagine conflict as some kind of yelling match with hugs at the end. They don't understand that some wounds don't heal. They scar, and every time someone brings them up, it's like the skin splits open again. That's what talking about. My dad feels like not a story, a re-injury, and yet somehow I'm the one they want to call cruel. Let me tell you what cruel is. Cruel is watching your child cry and not apologizing. Cruel is choosing your new wife's ambitions over your daughter's future. Cruel is turning a grave into a bank withdrawal. I didn't choose this. I didn't choose for my mother to die when I was 10. I didn't choose to live in a house where I felt like a guest in my own life. I didn't choose to spend my teen years planning a lawsuit instead of prom. And I certainly didn't choose to be the kind of person who had to fight her own father in court. That's not something anyone dreams about. That's something you survive. But the thing is, I did survive. More than that, I became someone. I used the money he tried to erase me with to build the life he never wanted me to have. I studied hard, graduated, got a job, made my own name. Not his, mine. And maybe that's the real reason some people in the family can't stand what I did. Because I didn't just win in court, I made it on my own. I didn't break. I didn't flinch. I didn't crawl back asking for acceptance. I became undeniable. I heard from one of my cousins that my dad still brings me up sometimes. Not in a way that sounds like he misses me. More like he's still trying to spin it, saying I was influenced by my mom's side of the family, that they filled my head with bitterness, that I never let go of the past. As if this was about resentment, as if this was about holding a grudge. It's not. It's about accountability. There's a difference. I'm not sitting here stewing in anger. I'm not plotting revenge. I'm living my life. I don't wake up thinking about him. I don't replay the court hearings in my head. I'm not haunted. I'm clear. I know what happened. I know why I did what I did. And I don't regret a second of it. Not the filings, not the court dates, not the judgment, not the fallout. The only thing I regret is not having a better father. And that's not my fault. That's his. If he wanted a daughter who stood by him, he should have been the kind of man worth standing beside. Instead, he taught me how to fight. He taught me that love without respect is worthless. That trust is not something you owe someone. Because of a title, it's something they earn and protect. And he failed that test 1,000 times over. I remember this moment after the court ruling, when we crossed paths in the hallway. He looked older than I remembered, smaller, like the weight of what happened had finally landed on him. He opened his mouth like he was going to say something, maybe to apologize, maybe to beg, maybe to defend himself one more time. But I didn't let him. I just looked at him, nodded once, and walked past. Because there was nothing left to say. Nothing that would have made a difference. Sorry doesn't unsteal. Regret doesn't rewrite. And I wasn't about to let him rewrite the story just to make himself feel better. You know who never made me feel guilty about any of this? My mom's family. They were behind me from day one. They showed me the paperwork, helped me find the lawyer, sat through court with me. They never told me to think of the other kids. They knew my mother's intentions, and they fought to honor them. They remembered who she was, and they knew what it meant to stand up for someone who couldn't anymore. They were the ones who reminded me that just because someone calls themselves your parent doesn't mean they're acting like one. That family isn't about avoiding conflict, it's about protecting each other, even when it's hard. Even when it costs you. I remember my uncle, my mom's brother, he looked me in the eye one day after a hearing and said, "This isn't about money, it's about truth." And that stuck with me, because yes, the money matters. Of course it does. But what really matters is that someone tried to erase my mom's final act of love, and I refused to let that happen. I defended her voice. I defended my right to exist in her legacy. And if that makes me cold in some people's eyes, so be. I'll take cold over cowardly. I'll take truth over peace built on lies. And if someday those kids, the ones people keep bringing up like they're some moral shield, if they ever come to me and ask why I did what I did, I'll tell them the truth. That I wasn't angry at them. That I never wanted to hurt them. That I did what I had to do because I was stolen from. Because I was erased. Because someone needed to say, this is not okay. And no one else was willing to say it. And maybe they'll understand. Or maybe they won't. But either way, I'll be able to look them in the eye. Because I did what was right. Not what was easy. Not what was polite. What was right. Sometimes I wonder what my mom would think of all this of me, of how it played out, of how I had to become someone so tough just to protect what was supposed to be mine without question. I think about her more than I admit. Not in that soft, nostalgic way people talk about the dead, but in flashes, her voice calling my name, the scent of her cooking on a Sunday, the way her fingers felt when she brushed hair out of my eyes. She left me more than money. She left me a blueprint, a last act of protection. She knew somehow that I might not be safe without her, that people might try to twist what was meant for me into something they could use. She gave me a gift and a map. My father tried to rewrite that map, tried to replace it with his own version of the story, where he's the provider, the one who knows best, the man doing what he had to do for the family. But I am not his character to cast. And this isn't his story anymore. This is mine, and I reclaimed it, piece by painful piece. They don't talk to me now, those cousins. I'll pay 10 times over. Because I'd rather be alone with my truth than surrounded by people who only love me when I'm compliant. My mom's family still calls, still checks in. They know I'm okay, but they also know I'm not untouched. How could I be? I had to claw my way through courtrooms, betrayal, and family whispers just to get to even. Not ahead, just even. That changes a person, makes you sharper, quieter, not cooler, but less willing to entertain bullshit. I've started therapy, real therapy, not just sending to friends and journaling at 2 a.m. And my therapist said something last week that stuck with me. You've had to parent yourself through most of your life. And it was like something clicked, because that's exactly what it's felt like. From the moment my mom died, I've been my own compass, my own advocate, my own guardian. My dad should have stepped up, should have honored her memory, should have looked at me and seen a girl who had already lost too much and said, let me protect what's left. Instead, he saw an opportunity. And the worst part, he probably didn't even think he was doing anything wrong. He probably convinced himself it was for the best. That's what makes it even harder to forgive, this idea that he could look at me, his own child, and still believe that helping his new wife chase some business fantasy was more important than keeping my mom's promise intact. That's a special kind of selfishness, one that wears logic like a mask, one that smiles while it steals. And now, years later, he's living in the aftermath of that choice. And I'm not saying I feel vindicated, but I do feel steady. I know who I am. I know what I've been through. And I know what I'm worth. That money, it doesn't define me, but it does represent something important. It's not just numbers in an account, it's my mother's voice, still speaking for me after death. It's justice. It's proof that my reality was real, even when they tried to gaslight me into thinking I was overreacting. And no, I'm not going to feel guilty because his other children lost a little comfort. Life isn't fair. They'll learn that, just like I had to. But maybe they'll also learn boundaries. Maybe they'll learn that people have limits. And if you cross them, especially in the name of self-interest, there are consequences. Maybe they'll see how loyalty works, what accountability looks like. Maybe they'll hear the story and ask questions their parents won't want to answer. That's not my problem. My job isn't to parent my siblings. It's not to protect them from the fallout of their parents' decisions. My job is to live the life I was meant to live before. Someone tried to steal it from me, and I'm doing that, slowly, fiercely, on my own terms. I've started a scholarship fund in my mom's name, just a small one for now, but it's beginning. I want her legacy to mean more than one fight. I want her name to be spoken in classrooms, in graduation speeches, in the